Human ingenuity that led to the development of DNA recombination technology will continue to amaze us as we learn of organisms that are genetically modified to express novel and desirable characters. The variations of characters that biotechnologists have introduced into plants, however, are by far meager compared to the natural diversity in plant form and function produced through millions of years of evolution. Good day everyone, I am Ma'am Jenny, your science teacher. On this video lesson, let us excite our senses with the kaleidoscope of colors, shapes, smells, tastes, and textures as we discover the immense diversity of the species in the kingdom of plants. At the end of this video lesson, you should be able to point out the diversity in plant forms by describing the general characteristics of the representatives of the division in the major plant groups, Tracheophytes and Tracheophytes. What is a plant? A plant is an organism that possesses the following characteristics. Number 1, multicellular. When we say multicellular, these are organisms that consist of 2 or more cells. Number 2, photosynthetic. When we say photosynthetic, these are organisms that can manufacture their own food by harnessing light energy coming from the sun. They have this structure known as the chloroplast that captures light energy coming from the sun, which is one of the raw materials in the food making process, which is what we call as photosynthesis. Number 3, stationary. Stationary means immobile or incapable of movement. Number 4, plants have slow growth process. And number 5, complex life cycle of alternating generations of asexual sporophyte and sexual gametophyte. Because of these shared characteristics, plants are placed under a kingdom of their own. Kingdom Plantae, also called Metaphyta. Present-day plants number to about 270,000 species worldwide. Plant taxonomists classify the members of Kingdom Plantae into 2 major groups, namely Tracheophyta, or the non-vascular plants, and Tracheophyta, or the vascular plants. They are differentiated based on the presence or absence of complex tissues for the transport of essential substances inside the plant. Xylem tissue transports water, whereas phloem tissue transports food. Xylem and phloem are collectively called vascular tissues. Tracheophytes or Tracheophyta are plants that have no vascular tissues and no true roots, stems, or leaves. Non-vascular plants are plants without a vascular system consisting of the xylem and phloem. Instead, they possess simpler tissues that have specialized functions for the internal transport of water. A Tracheophyta includes Bryophyta, Hepatophyta, and Anthocerophyta. Let's get into details about the different divisions of Tracheophytes. Let's start with the Bryophyta. Bryophyta, or the true mosses, includes the sphagnum or the peat moss. So here is an example of a peat moss. Next we have the Hepatophyta. from the word hepa, it refers to the liver because of its liver-shaped structure. Hepatophyta are also known as the liverbirds. Examples are the richa and merchantia. Next, we have the Anthocerophyta, also known as the hornworts. Hornworts because they shape like a horn. Example is the species of the Anthoceros. So we have three major divisions of the Trachyophytes. Again, we have the Bryophyta, Hepatophyta, and the Anthocerophyta. Next, we have the Trachyophytes or the Tracheophyta. This includes plants that have vascular tissues, produce lignin that strengthens their cell walls, and are encased in a waxy waterproof substance called cutin. Vascular plants, from the Latin word vasculum, which means duct, form a large group of plants that are defined as land plants with lignified tissues, which is the xylem, for conducting water and minerals throughout the plant. They also have a specialized non-lignified tissue, which is called the phloem, to conduct products of photosynthesis. Again, Tracheophytes are the group of plants with vascular tissues. These vascular tissues are namely the xylem and the phloem. Xylem is the water-conducting tissue, while the phloem is the food-conducting tissue. Tracheophyta can be grouped into two. We have the spore-bearing plants and the seed-bearing plants. Let's start with the spore-bearing plants. Spores are the most conspicuous in the non-seed-bearing plants. Spores function much like seeds. In general, the parent plant sheds the spores locally. The spore-generating organs are frequently located on the undersides of leaves. Here are the various divisions under the spore-bearing plants. We have the division Liliopsida. Whisk ferns are the most primitive vascular plants that appear to have a very close relationship with ferns. A very good example is the picture flashed on the screen. So we have here a species of Psilotum. Next we have division Lycopodophyta. So here is an example of a Lycopodophyta species. Club mosses are the first vascular plants that have true roots, stems, and leaves. So we have here the Lycopodium and the Selaginella. Next, we have division Equisitophyta, or also known as the Arthrophyta or the Spinophyta. So here are the examples of plants under division Equisitophyta. This plant is what we call as equisetum. They are commonly called horsetail. The division is represented by a single genus, and that is again the equisetum. Next we have the division Pteridophyta, also known as Felichinophyta. Ferns are rhizomatous plants with large leaves called fronds, and reproductive spores in sporangia that form dense clusters called sori. The sori are found on the undersurface of the leaves. We have the pteris, cyathea, ajanthum, asplenium, neprolepis, lygodium or what we call as nito, and the atherium or pako. At this point, let us proceed with the seed-bearing plants. Seed-bearing plants, as the term implies, are the plants that produce seeds. The seed-bearing plants have been an enormously successful group in the history of life, owing to the evolution of seeds and pollen. Seed-bearing plants can be the divided into two major groups. We have the GYMNOSPERMs and the ANGIOSPERMs. GYMNOSPERMs are the group of plants with naked seeds, whereas angiosperms are the group of plants wherein their seeds are enclosed inside a fruit. Let's start with the divisions of plants under gymnosperms. We have division Pinophyta or the Coniferophyta. I know that you are familiar with this structure, which is the cone. We usually use it to decorate on our home. Cone-bearing plants with needle-like leaves such as pines, cedar, and redwood. So usually we can see this type of plant, specifically the pine tree, in mountainous places of Benguet and Baguio, wherein the temperature is very low. The redwood species contains the largest and tallest in the world. These trees can live for thousands of years. Threats include logging, fire suppression, climate change, illegal marijuana cultivation, and burl poaching. Only two of the genera, Sequoia and the Sequoia dendron, are known for massive trees. Muir's Nag is believed to be the oldest redwood tree in the world. Muir's Nag is estimated to be more than 3,500 years old, but is no longer living. Although the tree is dead, it is still standing in the Converse Basin of the giant Sequoia National Monument in Sierra Nevada, California. Next, we have the division Cycadophyta. Division Cycadophyta are palm-like gymnosperms such as the cycads. Next, we have the division Ginkgophyta, broad-leaved deciduous trees represented by a single species, the living fossil Ginkgo biloba. Next, we have division Gnetophyta, shrubby gymnosperms with scale-like leaves or trees, and climbing vines with leathery leaves such as ephedra and netum. Next, we have the angiosperms. Angiosperms, or the division Magnoliopsida, or the flowering plants. The flowering plants, also known as Angiospermae or Magnoliophyta, are the most diverse group of land plants with 64 orders, 416 families, approximately 13,000 known genera, and 300,000 known species. Like gymnosperms, angiosperms are seed-producing plants. Division Magnoliophyta, or the flowering plants, also known as the angiosperms, can be classified as either Magnoliopsida or the class Liliopsida, also known as the Monocots and Dicots. Class Magnoliopsida, or the dicotyledonous plants, are flowering plants generally characterized by taproot root system. So we have here an example of a taproot root system. They have woody stems, they have netted vein leaves or the branching veins. They also have flowers, multiples of 4 or 5. Their seeds has 2 cotyledons each. Examples are mango, papaya, and guava. Next, we have the class Liliopsida, or the monocotyledonous plants. Monocots generally have the fibrous or diffuse root system. They have herbaceous stems or soft stems. They have narrow and parallel vein leaves. Their flowers is in multiples of 3, and their seeds has only 1 cotyledon. Examples are coconut, cogon, hagonoy, and banana. So here is the difference between the monocots and the dicots. So again, angiosperms or flowering plants can be classified into two groups, the monocots and dicots. So we have here the morphological differences in the number of seed or in the number of seed leaves or cotyledons, the root system structure, the vascular bundle arrangement, the leaf venation, flower parts in multiples, and pollen structure can help us distinguish between the classes. There are exceptions to this classification. Some plants may have both monocot and dicot characteristics. Importance of the non-vascular plants. Small as they are, non-vascular plants play an important role in the biosphere. They are producers and, as such, they provide for a number of herbivorous birds and other animals. They also carpet the soil and thus prevent soil erosion. Non-vascular plants often grow with lichens on rock surfaces, causing the outer portion of the rock to slowly crumble. Thus, they contribute to soil formation. When mixed with soil, they increase the water holding capacity and the amount of organic matter in the soil. In general, non-vascular plants have little economic importance. Sphagnum or peat moss is one of the few bryophytes that is of economic value to man. It is used as packing material for breakable or fragile objects such as figurines and dinnerware. Because of its water-holding capacity, it is also used as packing material for transporting plants and plant parts. Importance of ferns. Like all other producers, ferns belong to the first trophic level of various food chains in the biosphere. To people, they are used mostly for ornamental purposes. Some of these ornamental ferns include the achanthum or the maidenhair fern and the neprolepis, commonly called the Boston fern. The edible fern is a favorite whether raw, as salad, or cooked, so we call it aspako. A fern called nito in the dialect is used for binding and decorative purposes. Azolla is an aquatic fern that is worth mentioning. It has an obligate mutualistic relationship with a nitrogen-fixing cyanobacterium called Anabaena azolae. In this symbiotic relationship, Azolla provides protection to and obtains usable nitrogen from the cyanobacterium. Used as green fertilizer to provide crops a supplemental source of nitrogen. Azolla has been shown to increase yield in rice field by some 35%. Importance of gymnosperms. Like all plants, gymnosperms are important sources of food animals. Growing to massive sizes, they also provide habitat to wildlife. Although gymnosperms consist of about 800 species only, they rank among the most economically important plants. Many species of the group are significant timber trees, ornamental, medicinal plants, and as sources of essential oils and other products. In the Philippines, almasiga is the source of Manila copal or resin for varnish, wood for plywood, and furniture and pulp for paper products. The cancer drug Taxol is extracted from the conifer Pacific yew. In forests, gymnosperms are important in erosion control, protection of watersheds, and enhancement of aesthetic value of natural communities. Gymnosperms are of great biological importance because of their diversity of form and structure and of their well-documented fossil record. Of interest, too, to naturalists are the world records held by many members of the group. Let's summarize what we have learned today. Kingdom Plantae, or Metaphyta, consists of 270,000 documented species of organisms that are eukaryotic, multicellular, photosynthetic, stationary, with slow growth processes, and complex life cycle of alternating generations of asexual sporophyte and sexual gametophyte. Plants may be classified based on the presence or absence of vascular tissues into two major groups, Tracheophyta and Tracheophyta. All plants are ecologically important because they help maintain the relative concentrations of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Plants are also grown for ornamental purposes, as sources of medicine, timber, fuel fibers, and other economically valuable products such as oils, spices, dyes, and gums. At this point, let us check your understanding. Number 1. The name for plants that have flowers and produce an enclosed seed is A. Gymnosperms, B. Bryophyta, C. Angiosperms, letter D. Pinophyta. Number 2. Woody plants that usually produce cones or naked seed are known as A. FERNS, B. Gymnosperms, C. Angiosperms, D. Bryophyta. 3. Tracheophyta includes which of the following types of plants? A. Flowering plants, B. Moss, C. Cycads, D. Cones. Number 4. Which is a vascular seed plant? A. Moss, B. Whisk fern, C. Equisetum, D. Mango. Number 5. Which contains xylem and phloem? A. Hepatophytes, B. Bryophytes, C. Cycadophyta, D. Anthocerophyta. Alright, let us have the answers. Number 1, C. Number 2, B. Number 3, B. Number 4, D. And number 5, C. Thank you for watching this video lesson.